Remember when horror movies actually scared you instead of just trying to sell you the next sequel?
Better times.
Yeah, me too. Look, I love a good horror franchise as much as the next guy, but let's be real here. I think something went seriously wrong between the 90s and now. Back in the day, you might walk into a theater not knowing if you were about to watch the next big thing or have your mind completely blown. But these days, you pretty much know exactly what you're gonna get before you even buy your popcorn.
You are so fucking predictable!
You suck, you jackass.
Howdy, and thanks for clicking on this video to see what this jackass has to say. I appreciate you. If you're new here, my name's Chris, and I talk movies, in particular movies that mattered.
Well, aren't you special?
I'm really not too interested in what Hollywood's cooking these days. So I've been thinking about this a lot lately, especially after rewatching some classic 90s horror movies. At that moment, it kind of hit me like a truck. The 90s absolutely crushed it when it came to horror. It was a decade that gave us movies so good, so original that Hollywood's still trying to copy them 30 years later. And most of the time, I think they're failing pretty badly at it. Sure, there's the occasional banger, but for the most part, I'm usually left with the all too familiar feeling of nothing when the credits roll.
And I felt nothing.
I want you to think about it. When was the last time a modern horror franchise actually surprised you? When was the last time you walked out of the theater going, I have no idea what I just watched, but I need to talk about it with everyone I know? The 90s were full of those moments. Movies like Scream didn't just scare people, they changed how we think about horror. The Blair Witch Project was made for basically pocket change, and it terrified audiences more than most big budget movies do today. So today, I'm gonna break down 10 90s horror movies that didn't just entertain us, they set a bar so high that modern franchises are still trying to reach it. Some of these movies you definitely know by heart, others I think might surprise you a little bit, but every single one of them proves that the 90s knew something about horror that we seem to have forgot. So let's dig in and see why these old school gems are still teaching today's movies how it's really done. Alright, let's kick things off. Coming in at number 10, we have a movie that was so ahead of its time, it's not even funny. I'm talking about Wes Craven's New Nightmare. If you think about all the horror movies today that try to be clever and break that fourth wall, well, this was the movie that was doing that way before it was cool. Wes Craven, that mad bastard, literally put himself, the actors, and the crew into the movie to fight a version of Freddy Krueger that had escaped into the real world. It completely took apart its own franchise in the smartest way possible, basically asking what happens when our own scary stories become real. I think it's a genius idea because that totally set the stage for movies that came later. Plus, I think it's just a super underrated film that's both actually pretty scary and pretty funny. It's a true original that showed everyone how to reinvent a franchise from the inside out. Alright, let's talk about why Tremors lands at number 9 on this list. And you know, honestly, it deserves all the love. Imagine a horror movie and a Saturday morning cartoon had a baby. That's really Tremors. This is the movie where giant worms start eating people in the middle of nowhere, and somehow it's both terrifying and absolutely hilarious at the same time. There's just this goofy, small town charm to it. You've got these regular people, handymen, shop owners, a survivalist couple with enough firepower to start a small war, all banding together to outsmart monsters you can't even see. But here's the ingredient for the secret sauce. Tremors isn't trying to be some copy-paste sequel machine. It's really creative. Instead of haunted houses or slashers, you get this wild, the floor is lava game. But if you mess up, you're warm food.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
It's fun, tense, and somehow full of heart. Tremors never talked down to its audience, but modern franchises, they're busy selling action figures. Tremors was just out here giving us monster attacks, wild laughs, and a reminder that with some duct tape and stubbornness, you might just survive anything. That's why it's still digging its own place in horror history, and has a million sequels to boot. Event Horizon gets the number 8 spot. Look, I get it. Some people absolutely hate this movie, but hear me out. For me, Event Horizon is like every wild part of the 90s rolled into one space horror package. It's got the guts of a haunted house movie, but instead the house is actually a busted up spaceship drifting around in the middle of nowhere. And the scares are pretty big, grotesque, over the top, and honestly kind of bonkers, which is exactly what I think makes it special. People are still talking and arguing about this movie, and that I think is kind of the point. It really swings for the fences. Yeah, there's definitely enough camp in here to throw a tent and sleep in it, but there's there's also a real sense of dread that creeps under your skin. At a time when a lot of horror was starting to get slick and predictable, Event Horizon just went all in, full throttle, screaming into the void. You remember it even if you didn't love it. That's the magic. Here's why Audition lands at number 7. Trust me, this one still freaks people out after all these years. So let's set the scene. You think you're watching a quiet, kinda sad love story, right? It's almost a little boring. The pacing feels a little off at the beginning. Then boom, this movie basically rips the rug right out from under your feet and leaves you looking for the nearest exit. I think Audition is the king of slow burn. Director Takashi Miike lures you in with soft music and gentle dinner dates, then flips everything upside down and hits you with nightmare fuel that you'll never really forget. It's like opening a cute birthday card and finding a scorpion inside or something like that. The twist's so wild that even hardcore horror fans were totally caught off guard. There's plenty of people say that this film changed Japanese horror forever, and honestly, I believe it. It's scary in a way that sticks with you, haunting, brutal, and weirdly smart. Plus, it's kind of funny how it plays with your expectations. Modern horror franchises wish they could get under your skin like Audition does. Coming in at number 6 is Jacob's Ladder. So this movie's like a bad dream you can't wake up from, and I mean that in the best way possible. So you're sitting there watching and suddenly you're not sure what's real, what's fantasy, or if you're even awake yourself.
I don't know what's real.
Jacob's Ladder basically invented the whole what the hell is happening horror vibe that's everywhere now. But back in the 90s, nobody was mixing psychological chills with creepy blink and you'll miss it monsters quite like this movie was. Director Adrian Lyne turned every hallway and hospital bed into a haunted house in your mind. It's not just gross or shocking, it's deep. It's sad, and it really messes with your head. And the wild part, I think, is that years later, big-name horror games and movies still steal ideas from Jacob's Ladder because it got under people's skin that much. Forget jump scares, this is the movie that'll make you question reality way after the credits roll. That's why it still looms over stuff coming out today. Coming in at number 5, let's talk about Candyman. This was a movie that's so much more than just a scary story about saying a name into the mirror. Candyman isn't just a movie you watch and forget. It makes you think and maybe even look over your shoulder every time you go into the bathroom with the lights off. Modern franchises only wish they could make something this spooky and smart at the same time. That's why Candyman's still buzzing around everyone's heads all these years later. Some like it, but I've tried to forget that the 2021 reboot exists. Alright, sliding into the number 4 spot is Misery. Let me tell you, this movie proves you don't need monsters or ghosts to be absolutely terrifying. The scariest thing here is a person. Misery is just pure, raw tension. You've got a famous writer trapped in a bed with 2 broken legs, and his rescuer is his #1 fan.
I'm your #1 fan.
At first, she seems sweet, but then she starts to show her true colors, and honestly, it's chilling. This isn't about jump scares, it's about being completely helpless while a smiling, cheerful person slowly takes over your entire life. Kathy Bates gives one of the all-time great performances here as Annie Wilkes. She's incredible. It's aged so well. She's not some monster from another dimension. She's a person you might meet at the grocery store, and that's what makes her so damn scary. The movie traps you in that one room with him, and you feel every single second of his fear. Today's franchises are busy building big worlds, but Misery showed that sometimes the most horrifying place you can be is stuck in a single room with the wrong person. Alright, sliding into the number 3 spot is The Sixth Sense. I mean, let's be real. This movie completely broke everyone's brain in the best way possible back in 1999. You go in thinking you're watching a sad, spooky story about a little kid who sees ghosts. And sure, it's that, but it's so much more. This isn't about cheap jump scares. It's about a feeling of dread that just builds, and it's genuinely heartbreaking. The movie plays with you so cleverly that you don't even realize it's happening. And then, of course, there's that ending. The twist wasn't just a twist, it was a cultural event. People left the theater speechless, and you immediately wanted to rewatch the whole thing to catch all the clues you missed. It proved that a horror movie could be a quiet, emotional drama and still be the scariest thing you see all year. Modern horror movies are still chasing that high, trying to pull off a twist half as good as this one. And so is M. Night Shyamalan. Alright, Scream grabs the number 2 spot. Because, let's face it, this movie totally flipped the horror game on its head. Before Scream slasher movies had kind of become a big joke. Same old masked killer, same clueless teens. Then Wes Craven showed up and was like, why don't we have a little fun with this? Scream's clever without trying too hard. The characters literally talk about horror movies while they're in a horror movie, making jokes and laying out the rules to survive. You know, the stuff everyone at home always shouts at the screen. The opening scene's legendary for a reason. Nobody expected a big star to get taken out right away, and Ghostface, instantly iconic, spawning millions of Halloween costumes and memes. The movie was so smart and sneaky, but also genuinely scary. It made people pay attention and reminded everyone that horror could be sharp, funny, and still leave you jumping at the shadows. Even now, tons of newer movies are still trying to copy that Scream magic. And that's why it doesn't just deserve a spot on this list, it nearly takes the crown. And now for the number one spot, the big one. The movie that didn't just break the rules, but threw the whole rule book into a bonfire. I'm talking about The Silence of the Lambs. Honestly, is anyone surprised? This isn't just a horror movie, it's a damn masterpiece. If you think about it, a horror film that swept the Oscars, winning Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Actress, I mean, that just doesn't happen. It proved to the entire world that horror could be smart, serious, and downright brilliant. So what makes it king? Well, it's all about the characters. You have Clarice Starling, a tough, brilliant hero you actually root for, not just another victim. And then, of course, you have Hannibal Lecter. He's not some monster hiding in the shadows. He's a genius who terrifies you with his words long before he ever gets out of his cell. The fear in this movie comes from the quiet conversations, the mind games, and the feeling that you're always one step behind a true monster. It's a chilling, edge-of-your-seat thriller that treats you like you're smart. No modern franchise has even come close to this level of perfection. Period. And that's it for my list.
You thought you did a great job.
From the absolute mind-bending terror of The Silence of the Lambs to the genius, self-aware fun of Scream, the 90s, they just hit different, didn't they? These movies weren't just pumping out sequels, they were taking wild swings, creating legends, and giving us stories that still get under our skin to this day. They prove that you don't need a 10-movie franchise to leave a mark. You just need one great, unforgettable idea. But hey, that's just what I think. Now I want to hear from you. What's your number one 90s horror classic? Did I miss a gem that should have been on this list? Drop your picks down in the comments below. I read all of them. And if you've had fun revisiting these classics with me, do me a favor and hit that like button and subscribe for some more deep dives. Thanks for hanging out, and as always, the opinions in this video are mine and mine alone, but what do I know? I'm but a mere jackass. I'll try to do better next time. Catch you later, friends.
That talks too much. I'm just a jackass of all trades, don't know shit. I'll keep on talking, acting like I'm so legit. From politics to sports, I'll spout